everyone. Welcome to the Wellness Project with Des. Thank you for tuning in. Oh my goodness, what a year. So if you are listening to this, it is New Year's Eve. So happy New Year. What are you guys doing tonight? I'm not doing anything. I will just be home. Mark and I are exchanging our stockings tonight, so I'm very excited about that. That will be a lot of fun. We don't always exchange gifts. I'm not always into the spending money for no reason kind of thing. I actually knew what I was going to get him. I knew exactly what I was going to get him for Christmas, but I just didn't want to exchange this year, so we opted not to. But he did say that he wanted us to fill each other's stockings, which I thought was a cute idea. So I went to Five Below and picked out all cute little trinkets for him, like little fidget things and little puzzles and things like that. And I got him wool socks because he loves wool socks. Those are the only kind of socks that he will wear, and he wears them for years, but a bunch of them just got holes in them for some reason all at the same time. So I got him a few of those. So yeah, we don't always exchange. We've exchanged a few times. We've been together almost 10 years now, and we've exchanged a few times, but we'd rather like take a trip somewhere or something. So we are hopefully in January or February, we could do a weekend away at like a cottage or something so he could snowboard and I could just like hang out in a little cabin or something. So hopefully we could do that. We looked on Airbnb, but they were so expensive. I couldn't find anything for less than $350 a night, and we wanted to go for a few days, and I don't really want to spend like $1,000 on accommodations. So we will see if that works out. I'm going to look in different areas and see different cabins. The thing is, I want like a nice cabin. I don't want to go and spend a few days while he's snowboarding alone in a crappy room by myself. So I'm looking for something like a little nice. So if you guys have any ideas, I'm in Colorado. If you have any ideas of cabins or cottages or anything that we could look into, that would be much appreciated. But anyway, I hope your New Year's is wonderful, whatever you do. If you're home or you're with your family or whatever, I hope it's a good time, and let's put 2020 behind us. Goodbye 2020. We're so excited to never think about you ever again. Moving on to bigger and better things, right? 2021 will be better. Maybe not the first few months of 2021, but I feel like by summer, things are going to be great and amazing and just awesome, and we can forget this nightmare of a year ever happened. So switching gears, welcome to the season finale of season 1 of my podcast. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe I've been interviewing people for just about a year. I think my first episode of my interview went up in like February or March or something like that. So it's been a wild year. I've gotten to talk to so many incredible people. I feel so lucky that I got to talk to people not only in the US or different states, but around the world. I talked to people in Canada. I talked to people in Ireland and Italy. So cool. It was really incredible. It was difficult with the time difference, but definitely worth it. It was so cool. I really, really loved it. I learned a lot this year. I had a lot of technical difficulties that I had to go through. There were so many embarrassing moments, like I would be interviewing somebody and we'd be in the middle of a really great conversation, and then just Zoom would crash and we got cut out and kicked off the meeting. Horrible things like that happened, but editing, so it worked out. But so I definitely learned a lot this year. I was so happy to be lucky enough to have this podcast and have people actually message me that they wanted to be interviewed on my podcast and that they really liked it. I've gotten positive feedback from my podcast, so excited. I'm so glad that season 1 went well. This is the 34th episode, which I think is pretty good for a year, 34 episodes in a year. We'll see how I do next year for season 2. I already have a ton of interviews lined up. I've already interviewed a few people towards the end of this year that will be posted next year. Very excited for you to hear those. So basically, I'm just excited for season 2, how my podcast can grow, more interviews, meeting more people from around the world and getting to talk to them to bring you awesome mindset tips, wellness tips, mental health tips. So excited. Today's episode is very special. I'm so excited that you tuned in for today's episode because it's basically a highlight reel of season 1. In this episode, you will find clips from some of the interviews I had throughout the year, and you will hear their words of wisdom, their words of encouragement, their advice on things such as overcoming your self-doubt, working through your anxiety, encouraging you to take the next step towards your goals. so inspiring. I loved rehearing their words of wisdom and encouragement. It made me really, really happy and full of inspiration, and I hope that it does that for you too. I will not delay any longer. Here are some highlights from season 1 of According to Des / The Wellness Project with Des. Next year, it will just be The Wellness Project with Des, so it'll be a little less confusing. So here we go. Enjoy.
You learn so much when you travel. You learn about other cultures. You learn other languages as well, because you have the opportunity to practice them on the place. But also I think it gives you a lot of empathy towards other people. You become more open-minded. You understand more other people. Like, it's just this natural thing that you understand that everything is relative to where you live or where you grew up. And you accept more other people's views, I think, overall. It made me more confident. I knew that, like, when I was away for a long time and I didn't plan anything, I was always able to, like, come out of difficult situations. Not that I found, like, very bad ones, but, even smaller things may seem big. So once you're back, you're just, like, more confident, that, like, there is a solution for almost everything.
Put it out there. Make the first portfolio site. It's not going to be great, but you have to be willing to do it. You just have to start somewhere. You have to be willing to make the messy stuff before you can make the good stuff, so that your stuff starts looking as professional as possible. But you have to be willing to make the stuff that isn't great and be willing to explore whatever interests you. Like, trust what you think is interesting instead of what you think people will buy at first. Go with what you want to draw and see where it takes you. Like, I'll try drawing something I've never drawn before, like an animal or whatever it is, and it's just like, oh, there's always such this learning curve where at this point it's fairly easy for me to draw flowers. I draw a lot of flowers because I like them. By doing it over and over and over again, and realizing too, like, oh, it used to be really hard for me to draw a dog. So the first couple of times you do it, you're like, oh man, I'm not good at this. Like, I'm never going to be able to draw a dog. And then slowly you just start getting better at it. And the more you do something that at first you're not good at, and then see that you can get better at it, the more willing you are to try things that are hard. Doing all sorts of things that you're a beginner at makes you more confident. Gaining confidence in something else helps me gain confidence in my abilities as an artist too. I can overcome being a beginner and feelings of not being good enough at something in another area, then I can also do that in art too. I'll also go through periods of time where I won't draw that much, and like find sometimes where I'll go to do something and it's just not happening. It's just not coming together. I don't feel creatively inspired, and I'll just step back from it and I'll try something else. Even just take a break in reading for a couple of days in the time that I would have been doing art. And then I find when I go back to it, it's like I'm re-energized and like suddenly things are starting to come to me again. I have to like listen to myself a little bit, and I'm learning how to do that over time, not pushing it. And also just sitting down and drawing without any expectations. Like, it's really hard as an artist. You want to sit down and you want to draw something good, but giving yourself the time to just draw things that don't end up looking good. But you have to do those to be able to get to the good stuff. Giving yourself no pressure moments to just have fun, explore things that you know aren't going to look good, but nobody's going to see them. So just do it anyway, and then you can get to the things that end up looking better.
Labeling myself professionally as an artist, I still have a hard time with it. Say like, I'm an artist, I'm a working artist. I think while I was in college, I was able to lean on, oh, I'm a student artist. Like, I'm still in that learning phase. And you're always in that learning phase. And that's the thing that I think I struggle with, is I'm always going to be learning and evolving in art. It's kind of left me feeling insecure about just openly saying like, hey, I'm an artist, this is what I do. Because I think when people hear that, they're thinking, oh, you're an artist. Okay. I live with very severe anxiety and ADHD, which makes art making sometimes just horrible, like torturous.
Wow.
And I think that people don't understand that. They're like, well, it's what you love, it's what you're passionate about. Like, how could it be miserable sometimes? And I really struggle with being a little bit too hard on myself and a little bit too much of a perfectionist. I'm very detail oriented. A lot of that comes from the anxiety, but even from the ADHD, that's a thing that a lot of people suffer with is, yes, you can lack focus, but you can also become too focused and hyper focused. it's all just a mental game. It's almost like exercise and running and things like that. Like you have to lie to yourself and like work yourself up to get where you need to go. I am also notoriously, I think as a result of all those things, a big procrastinator. I would put things off so long because I was just too scared to fail. That's what it boiled down to. I think it was another issue of perfectionism and that kind of thing. It took me a long time to realize that that's normal. And most people in creative fields or even in any field feel that way. First and foremost, especially in creative fields, when you're making work that matters to you and is important to you, I think you're so much more driven to do it. I think that when you're making work that you're passionate about, it makes it a lot easier to get started and to get into that state of flow. I think getting started is always the hardest part. Let's talk about what the very first step is, even if it's literally like moving from your computer chair to your art stool. What is that first step? Like, let's just do that. It really is true that when you do make that small effort, you can usually kind of work yourself into it. And then when you are in it, you don't want to stop usually. Sometimes maybe. And if you're beating yourself up about how it's going, then that's a different story. People have recommended to me a lot over the years to work in segments to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate this hour to this thing. Another thing that I tend to do is when I am in that state of flow and things are going pretty well, I will always have something else, some other stimulation, whether it's a podcast or Netflix or music or whatever, something else going on to kind of keep my mind active so that I'm not constantly belittling myself. You almost have to distract yourself from your thoughts. You also have to be realist on them and acknowledge them, because I do think that's important. You can't just brush them off and like save them for another day. It is nice to retreat to a space. I think that is important, especially if you do want to take yourself seriously in a career like this. Having somewhere where you can go and work is definitely important.
I would really want them to take away like a sense of pride, not only in their dancing, but in themselves. And I would really want them to walk away with their head held high, their shoulders pulled back, because that's how you're supposed to stand when you're dancing, I understand. Just stand tall and straight and be proud of who they are. Never be afraid to do something different and walk away feeling confident, and take that in all areas of your life, and take that drive, that discipline, that perseverance, that hard work and never giving up attitude that you had in dance, so that you master those steps and whatnot in competitions, and take that, because I think that really will take you far in real life. If you have a goal, if you have a dream, don't be afraid to go after it, and don't be afraid to go against the grain and follow your heart and follow your passion. It's not to say that there isn't struggles or there isn't challenges, but you have to remember like the good times, and you have to remember why you started this and why you're here and what you want to accomplish. And you didn't get this far to just get this far. You just want to keep going. And right now it's important to be strong and be a role model for the kids who probably feel like so lost without like seeing their friends every day and are struggling, they're stuck at home or whatnot, So I think it's important to just always have that mindset of like looking forward to the future and what the future holds, and knowing that you're going to survive and take that drive and, like I said, determination with you no matter what. You could always better your best, we'll say. You could always break the step down more and just do it over and over again until it's perfect. And it's like muscle memory. Think if they're not receiving that sort of validation at home or from their friends, or I think it's so important as teachers that you plant that seed of belief in them, encourage them. Like, I know you can do it. You may not believe it or see it in yourself, but I see it. So don't give up, don't quit, because you're just like one step away from reaching your goal.
How long it took me to get out of my own way to start doing this stuff? That probably took 6 or 7 months. So from idea of like, hey, this can be helpful, to, hey, sit down and make these videos. Hey, sit down and do this outline. All that is, I procrastinated so much. I had to overcome a bunch of fears. I had to get out of my own head. Sometimes I spend way too much time in my own head. And there's a place for that. When you're looking for stillness, you search inside your head. But if you spend too much time in there, you can get lost in there. I procrastinated for a long time. And I'm definitely trying to implement things in my life to stop doing that, because I still think I do that. But I also know that it's not exclusive to me. I know a lot of people suffer from this, and I know that's common. So that gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that, hey, I'm not just feeling this thing just because it's me. It's It's just something I have to overcome. I have to be courageous about it. We've been designed to basically just slave away. It's kind of that mentality of like, hey, just, school trains you to just show up to work, do the work, compare yourself to others, right? That kind of just sets you up for a tough life if you keep following that trend, right? So if you stick to those routines, that's where the anxiety comes from, because you know that you're capable of more, right? You feel that calling, you hear it, but all your life you've just been told to do it one way. So I think people just get scared of telling that voice to be quiet and doing what they want to do.
I've had a lot of people, particularly who are members of the studio space, just trying something for the first time and just thinking, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know where this is going to get me. And sometimes just giving something a try is all you need to kind of tell you which direction to go in. It's just a case of practicing, learning from mistakes, practicing again, making some more mistakes. Particularly in visual arts and crafts, there are so many different ways you can kind of come to something. I'm in pottery. Pottery is a really great example of that. So there are so many different ways you could make something. If your dream is to make mugs to sell and you try throwing on the wheel and you think, oh, I'm not good, I can't do this, I'm not good enough at it. Not only do you obviously need to practice and practice and practice, but there are so many other ways you could make a mug with a piece of clay, not just by throwing on the wheel. Sticking at it is kind of the primary thing to do. But if you're kind of feel like you're hitting a wall, I always recommend that people try something else with the clay. As I said earlier, kind of rolling out slabs and building. You can make mugs like that. You can make pinch pots. I guess it's about kind of being flexible around what your ideal of making something is. And if something's not working, try another approach and you might just find it like that. I think having a support network, whether it's people you actually know in person or people kind of on an online forum, it's been so invaluably useful for me.
Finding a community, finding a support system, whether that's your friends or your family, even online communities are great. There's so many like niche communities on the internet that you can find, and I've found some of my best friends through the internet, which is crazy. Finding people you can talk to and like have a safe space. Self-care is so important. I meditate daily. I have like a meditation app and just do it like 3 minutes a day, which is like really helpful for me. I'm teaching myself how to juggle. That's been like a big quarantine hobby for me, and I found it really helps with my like anxiety, so that's kind of fun. Doing things you love outside of your field, having time for yourself and stuff like that.
I started my website about 3 years ago. I was like, I don't know where this is going. And then things kind of started to happen. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And it got maybe even a little addictive because I was like, I want to work on it and just want to push it as far as it can go and do the best I can. And so I was at one point coming home pretty consistently working like 5 to 6 hours on it every day after work. But it was a lot. And I ended up not really preparing myself for burnout. It was probably inevitable. So I've actually been through a couple of episodes of it with ebbs and flows of motivation. But I did do a detox for the month of February, and it was really incredible. I calculated that I had been using about 70 hours basically just on Instagram a month. That's a lot of time. So it was nice to take a step back and reflect, because I think when you do anything over and over again, the creative process is a lifelong process. I don't think that it's meant to be 100% sustainable at the same level that you do it the entire time. And I think that's where a lot of creators will take the lead, is because they are finding the process of how to make it work for them, how to make it sustainable. I love writing. I get up and I write for 30 minutes a day, and it seems like a really small amount, but I think that's how they keep it sustainable. So right now for me, I'm in this weird period where I'm working through kind of how to make it sustainable, but I always do have that motivation. For me, I'm a storyteller at heart. There's always something new to learn. There's new people to learn about. I think that's really where my motivation comes in. And also time management has become really important. I can do now more in a 25-minute lunch period than I could before, or, using my commute and answering emails on my phone or engaging with my community. I also being able to discern what really is the most important things. Make sure that you're managing your expectations. So I think being able to balance it is a little bit of time management, the motivation, understanding that you have to find ways to make it sustainable. Getting advice. I get a lot of advice from other people too. You can do everything, but you can't do everything at the same time. You're capable of it. You can't be firing it on all cylinders all the time. To realize that and then be able to take your foot off the gas when you need to is really important. I don't really want to be like everybody else. So when I see people doing a lot of the same thing, I'm like, how could I do this differently or put my own spin on it? I don't want to be part of the cookie cutterness. So I didn't want to put myself in a box. That originality, I always kind of challenge myself. What is really my own personality and like how can I make this happen? I just don't think that it's truthful that everybody has this highlight reel that's perfect all the time, because that's not life. I'm not afraid of putting my true self out there. And the reason I do that is because I want other people to be inspired to also put themselves out there in their true form, whatever that is. Setting that example for people and showing them that it's okay to goof off and not take things super seriously is okay. I hope that is perpetuated. You feel icky when you're uncomfortable, but you are growing at that time. I'm a really big believer in surrounding myself with people who are smarter than I am. I think the most important thing for me is just to keep learning. It's part of my core as a person. And I think being a lifelong learner will get you so far and just open so many doors.
That's my big thing right now and always is acceptance and a version of self-care that is really acceptance-based. Everybody is creative and that everybody's an artist. I think that this is part of that story that we all believe about our path in life. I think part of that story is we put aside childish things, we put aside our creativity, and we give that up in service of this more important thing, career, the family, etc. I think that we really are missing something in our lives, no matter who we are, when we put aside the idea that I could spend the afternoon listening to a record and doodling. That's not a legitimate use of 3 hours, but binging a Netflix show is. I have a lot of anxiety, and I'm an achiever. Every day starts at 0. I wake up in the morning, and if I don't get these many things done, then I feel like a waste, and the day was a waste, and everything's a waste. One thing that's really helped me, accepting discomfort, accepting that I'm going to be uncomfortable because I have all this energy, right? So a lot of my life, I'm just going to be like, oh, what's happening? What needs to, and just sitting with that and being like, that is cool that I have that in me. I'm grateful that I have that in me because it's what keeps me doing cool stuff. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have done any of this cool stuff. If I wasn't always a little unsatisfied with what I'm doing and what other people are doing, and and then the other side of that is acceptance, and that's why meditation is so important to me, right? Because I need to balance that or it gets really edgy. And I don't want to be edgy. I don't want to be aggressive or angry or any of that. I do need to honor that I have so much energy running through me and this intense idea of right and wrong, just finding the gray area in there and just sitting with it and just being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
It's never too late to learn something. Never. It's been my life goal to learn something new every single day, be it a word, the name of a bird, something. In my server book is a quote from Chris Guillebeau, and it says, inspiration is good, but inspiration with action is so much better. And I live that. I really do live that. I like to inspire people and kind of push them along. I like to be inspired by other people, and I find it fascinating to learn all of the different things that are out there. You can do anything you want to do because it's either written in a book or you can find it on the computer. If you can't find it on the computer, then there's a problem. So then you write the computer program for it, or you do the YouTube video for it. I always say, well, when I grow up, I want to be and I don't know what I want to do. I still am always learning. You can do this. And I try to tell the kids, and I tell Anna, my granddaughter, all the time, you want to do something? You can do it. I'm not doing it for you. You can do this. When I hear her say, I can't, it makes me crazy because you can. The words I can't, I try very, very hard not to ever say, I can't do this. For me, it's always, I will do this and I'm going to figure it out. I want you to research it, learn it. Don't get stuck trying to make it the absolute most perfection thing. Just go for it and do it. Believe in yourself. Believe that you can do something. Because if you believe you can do it, you can definitely do it.
I was an English teacher for a bit, and that was a time where I really felt that I didn't have time to be creative. The creativity definitely went all into my work at that time. One thing that I found helpful was to try and take like 15 minutes a day and just be like, this is my little protected time. If it's during my lunch break and I'm just doodling, like nobody can talk to me or whatever it happens to be, you can either do 15 minutes to build up to something more or like 15 minutes of doodling just to de-stress. I think that was something that really made it approachable for me to do while I was really busy.
Structure is important. It's one of the things that keeps you doing the thing you want to do, which is why sometimes the prescription when you're blocked creatively is go take a class. Despite the fact that we're all different, we all have the same blocks though, and the blocks tend to work in the same way. It still works better if you kind of follow the thing that works for you. So owning what it means to be a writer and owning that title for yourself and being comfortable with calling yourself a writer, and then just different ways to play with writing and experiment with writing and see what happens. And really the play is the important part, because if we turn it into work, then it becomes a chore and it becomes standards bound, and then that just gets in everybody's way. But if you can play with it and see what works for you, maybe you like writing this kind of thing more than this other kind of thing. Maybe it turns out you really do well writing memoirs, or maybe you're a poet and you had no clue. And so I'm not an expert on purpose, but I will say that I really admit that I shamelessly stole the words "follow your curiosity" from Elizabeth Gilbert. She talks about how when she went to write The Signature of All Things several years ago, before she started it, she wanted to write something. She did not want to write something that was a memoir. She wanted to do something different, but she didn't know what it was. And that's when this friend said to her, "Follow your curiosity. What are you curious about?" It's so genius, because she was contrasting it with "follow your bliss." She's like, your bliss may or may not get you somewhere, but your curiosity, if you're willing to be curious and indulge your curiosity, will get you anywhere. It'll take you places that you never even knew existed before. It'll open up things that you didn't know there were to be interested in or to work in or whatever. That's why working with kids, what are you curious about? What do you want to know more about? What are you already interested in? What questions can we ask about what you're interested in? The same thing is true with everybody. We just forget how to be kids when we get old. And by old, I can mean 16 for some people and 72 for others. What are you curious about? What do you want to know about? What do you want to learn? What fascinates you? It could be plasma physics, and you might not have any kind of background in science, but if you start reading basic stuff about plasma physics and follow the parts that you find really interesting that you want to know more about, you're going to end up knowing a lot about plasma physics. Or you might find some side thing that you never expected that's even more interesting than plasma physics that leads you where you're supposed to be. I think you know where you're supposed to be when you land there. I think it's moments like looking at the Kaizen Muse website and going, oh my God, this is where I belong. And even that is not necessarily a destination. That's part of the journey. It could take you somewhere else. Follow your curiosity. Don't just be curious about something for 5 minutes and then go back to watching Arrested Development. Keep going. See where it takes you.
We think we're talented or we're not talented. That can really hold you back if you think you're not talented. And it's like, okay, we might have a natural inclination towards something. It might come more easily to me than it does to you or whatever. But I really think that talent is overrated. I think someone's ability to work hard and grow is going to vastly outweigh that talent. And if you have both of those things, that's awesome. You're going to go even further. Right now, I think more than ever, we just need to do things that feel good. And I think a lot of times we discount things that feel good because we're like, well, work's got to be hard in order for it to have value. And I really don't think that's true. It's something I'm still wrestling with after the value of hard work being drilled into me for so long. If you're feeling really stressed out and want to do something creative and that's stressing you out further, you can think about what's the smallest, lowest stakes way I can do that. For some of us, say I put a lot of pressure on myself about something I'm doing piano wise. Like maybe that's not how I want to de-stress on that day. If I'm feeling a lot of pressure about like my main thing, maybe I'll pull out some paper and some fun pens. I like to doodle. Maybe that's what I do. You might not see that as significant or important if you're like looking for it to be a major achievement. But I think any way that you can take the pressure off yourself to achieve or to be good or any of those things, I think that's a great place to start.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in this whole first season. There were a lot of ups and downs and trial and error and experimentation and changing my name and new equipment. It was a crazy year. Thank you for sticking with me through it. I'm hoping for an awesome season 2. I hope that you enjoyed all of those clips from throughout season 1. If you want to know who specifically was talking, that is in the show notes. I have it. Clip 1 is this person, this episode. Clip 2 is this person, this episode. If you resonated with anything those wonderful, wise people had to say, then definitely take a listen to their episode. Don't forget to subscribe, leave comments, leave reviews, and share with your friends and family. But most importantly, subscribe so that you can stick with us for season 2. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope that 2021 will be your best year yet.